Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And yeah, we got a lot more coming up once again, more big interplanetary missions, another moon landing. We're going to be working on our communications satellite network here coming up. So yeah, we are just cranking through all kinds of really cool stuff. Like, this is kind of my golden age right now where I'm doing just really interesting things every time. But yeah, let's get right to it. All right, comm box 2, which is actually comm box 3 because we had a mission failure. All right, comm box 2 sitting on the pad ready to go, so we are just going to engage the autopilot, and 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Fabulous. And time acceleration is our friend. So yeah, here we go. We are on our way up with the comm box 1, which is trying to tip over sideways, which I don't love. Like, there's a certain amount of memory that the MacLeod PVG tool has in between launches. Like, it will remember that certain launches, certain rockets will need to do certain things, but then other ones it seems like it just doesn't remember. Or it'll update on something that doesn't seem to be the same vessel. I don't know. I'm not clear about what's remembered when and when it's not. But for the most part, I can basically like set, like, okay, I need this to force roll 180 degrees to be parallel to the plane that it's launching in. And I can just kind of count on that working on every one of these launches, but then sometimes when I flip around or I change or I use a similar rocket that doesn't quite do the same thing, it, ooh, we're getting a little toasty. Sometimes it'll forget what I had put in, and that's not great, but it's also just totally fine. This is an incredibly complex system, and I'm asking it to do all sorts of weird things. Okay, so we are launching this with on an AJ-10 mid, so it's not a problem at all that we have a tiny extra burn on the end here. All right, so this booster stage is about to cut out. Make sure we are on free camera. Seeing the lovely sun there as we get up into our good orbit. Knock off our fairings and all of that, and we have our second comm satellite adjusting itself to get into a good 150 kilometer circular orbit before it heads up to chase after comm box 1. What are you doing? I do not understand how MacLeod plans these particular maneuvers, but yeah, I don't understand how MacLeod does what it does, but man, that is a complicated piece of software. Okay, so I've realized now that there is a small conundrum, kind of, and I'm wondering how much it matters. So what I'm looking for here, and actually no, this is not going to be, this should not be a problem. I'll use MacLeod to actually create this burn, but let me actually tell you what the heck I'm trying to do here before I get all weird about it. So we are in a regular orbit in 28-degree inclination around Earth. Okay, so we want to be in a 0-degree inclination in a much higher orbit, but we want to be very carefully relative to comm box 1 as to where we are in our orbit. We generally want to be, you know, in a perfect, like, if you were to split this into perfect thirds, we want each satellite to be at the end of one of those lines that were to intersect this circle. So that's what we want to have happen, but making that happen is a fairly complicated process, and we still have to get into a funky orbit. So we need to be careful about when it is that we move up to the next part of our orbit so that we can very carefully determine when we are going to get there. So if I were to go from the equatorial descending node at 0-degree inclination, we would arrive there around here, and our target will be there. So that is what that is a little bit too close. So what we can just do then is I'm gonna pop open the maneuver node editor, and we can just add an orbit. So that will execute this on our next orbit instead of this orbit. or this time through, and you can see that we've now moved a little bit. So we move back in orbit and we've just slid about that much. And that's why this is a little bit challenging, because it's not going to move by very easy regular amounts. We're going to move by pretty big jumps. Getting this spacing exact is not super critical for this particular set of satellites, but we do want to make sure that we're like pretty close. We want to have this done in a way that's usable, even for how long this is going to be up there, for a year or two. We want to make sure that we are meeting our goal of constant UHF signal coverage in low Earth orbit. And we need to do that by making sure that the 3 satellites aren't bunched up like in the same spot. Like, that's not helpful to anybody. We want to make sure they're spaced out evenly around their orbit. It doesn't have to be exact, but so long as they have roughly the same orbital period, they should stay in roughly the same location. And the expectation of a low duration on this of these missions means that we don't have to stress too much about getting the orbital period exactly precisely the same so that they never move relative to each other, because we're going to need to deorbit them or like terminate them within 2 or 3 years anyways, so that's not important. So all that to say, without getting my protractor out, this looks about right to me. Like, this looks like about 1/3, and then that, and yeah, something like that looks about right to me. So we're looking at about 4 hours and 36 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to delete this node, and then I'm going to have the maneuver planner move it, make one exactly right. So we are going to change our apogee at the equatorial descending node. 10,000 kilometers, and then create node. Okay, so that gets us precisely to the correct apogee. So that's step 1. Step 2, we want to do this in 1, 2, 3, 4.5 hours, and that gets us intersect 2, intersect 1. Yeah, sometimes it'll do something like this where intersect 1 is down at the bottom of our orbit, so that's not actually helpful. So intersect 2 is the one that we are going to be looking at here. So we see intersect 2 is here, target position, intersect 2 is there. Once again, without grabbing my protractor, this looks about right-ish, and I think will be good enough for government work. So that is the plan. We are going to try to do that. The last thing to check is to make sure that we will actually have power for that amount of time, and we'll be totally fine. We have 1 day worth of electric charge because I've taken the advice that you all have given me and packed on more battery on my upper stages so that we don't have to worry about this quite as much. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to turn this off and go the wrong way with my RCS. That's very important, apparently. Heave. Yeah, it's not important to actually move quickly when you're making maneuvers like this one in space, so I need to just not be stressed about it not moving quickly. Okay, so now we are getting 76 more or so more, and there we go. That's good enough. We'll just halt our rotation. Maybe I'll turn a little bit. There we go. Get that solar power up a little bit, 92%, so that we can make sure that we have plenty of power generation happening while we are warping around for the next 4.5 hours. Okay, so with the burn about 4.5 minutes away, we are going to now use MacJeb to execute the node. And yeah, that should, in theory, insert us into a 10 million meter Earth apogee, which will have our CommBox 1 satellite about here-ish. And that way we don't have to guess about how far away it is, and that should be about 1/3 away. And then that will just mean that we have 2 nodes of our constellation up, and they will be well on their way to being able to provide that level of communication over the entire globe, which is a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoy building comm networks. I find it to be a very satisfying problem in like doing that geometry, and I will admit that I I have literally gotten a protractor out of a schoolwork bag and been like, okay, I'm slapping this protractor against a screen and going, okay, how many degrees does this need to be, and doing all those calculations and all that. So yes, I've done this the hard way before, but there's no reason to make this more complicated than it needs to be. I think the interesting thing comes from not trying to like discover the right tools and finding out ways to describe these orbits. The interesting thing is making the plans, right? Like what I want to do, the problem that I'm trying to solve is low Earth orbit UHF communications, right? So that's the problem I'm trying to solve. How do I solve that problem? I solve that with a medium Earth orbit communications network. So 10 million meters, we put 3 probes here that can see down at the ground stations, and they can see all of the vessels and communicate with each other as well, so that anybody is going to have a link back down to a deep space network station at some point. Like somewhere, someone is going to have, between the 3 of them, one of them is always going to have a strong connection that can bounce and relay that down from anything that I then have up in orbit. And so there you go. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. We can do that by spacing out our satellites at a certain angle, roughly 1/3, because it doesn't need to be precise, it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to work and help us to facilitate the gameplay that we're looking for. And that's what I really enjoy about RP-1. Like, not to get too philosophical about it, but this is why I've put thousands and thousands of hours into Kerbal Space Program, because it brings you down to that level of like, I need to learn a little bit about like, okay, teach me about communications networks, teach me about orbital mechanics, teach me about how to maneuver in space so that I can solve these problems that allow me to then go and solve different problems and other problems, because this allows me to have a little bit easier of a time with every vessel that I launch from now on is going to be a little bit easier, because I don't have to go, shoot, I don't have any signal, so let me time warp a little bit forward. And like, that's this little inconvenience that I am solving with a real life application of this science of how to do all of these things. And I think that is incredibly neat. And that is why I have spent far too much of my life on Kerbal Space Program, and now has me talking to you wonderful people and trying to share some of that joy with you. So I hope you guys enjoy that as well. But we are getting pretty close to the end of this burn, another 10 seconds to finish that, and we will have our second goofy looking PC tower in space. 3, 2, 1, and second engine cut off. We have a good apogee that is going to bring us up on time. So fantastic, that's wonderful. So now let's just point ourselves sunward again as we warp up to our new apogee. Okay, but first we need to do our maneuver. So we need to circularize and do the other thing. Merge. Yeah, so once again, we are just doing a change inclination to 0 degrees and merge the circularization burn into one burn, which is convenient for us and also costs a little bit less, I think. And that should get us there. So you can see now that our intersect is here and our target position is there, so nothing's changed as far as that's concerned. It doesn't matter where in this orbit this happens, it's just the relative positions is what we need to worry about. So we are just going to warp a little bit closer. All right, here we go. Just about ready to do our final burn for orbital insertion for our CommBox 2 satellite. Ullaging up. Still ullaging. And we have a good ignition. Fantastic. Yeah, so that is that. We just have another 2 minutes of burn to hopefully survive before we get this all set up for our communications network. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. I really enjoy putting comm networks together in particular, for all the reasons I just said, but it's a very satisfying sort of thing, like putting together, like, you design the satellite, you design these stages, you design the mission profile that gets you into the correct orbit, and then you execute it like a bunch of times in a row, and then there you go. Then you have your CommSat network. So we are going to want to start thinking about what back of the moon communications looks like. I'm sure there's a better phrase for it than that. That sounds a little more professional than back of the moon, but back of the moon communications, but you know, whatever. But that's something that we need to do, and I'm thinking we'll probably end up doing those mock Lagrangian point orbits that I talked about before. The trick is, because we are using patched conics, and because we're using patched conics means I have to be very careful not to fall into the sphere of influence of the moon, because if we do, then we will suddenly be subject to the moon's gravity and be flung probably out of the solar system. It's happened to me before where I'll just be like doing other missions. I'll set up my comm network back in remote tech days. Then I will be like, okay, it's done. I've got them in the Lagrange points. I've got my 3-node comm network around Earth or Kerbin or whatever it is I'm playing with at the time. And then I go, okay, so now it's time to go do other missions. And then I come back and I go, where is my communications satellite? And I find it like out in a heliocentric orbit somewhere. It's like, oh, well, that's not super useful. But yeah, so you have to be very careful about that when you're playing with patched conics. And yes, I know Principia would be much better about that because it actually models the Lagrange points and all that sort of thing. But as I've said before, it just seems like kind of a lot. So I don't really have a better excuse in that than I didn't want to learn yet another thing when I was trying to learn RSS and RP-1. So yeah, there you go. But we are there. We are in our orbit. I'm not sure that I even care about trying to like finish. Yeah, I don't think I care about like even fine-tuning this orbit any further than I already have, because it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't. Like, this in the time scale that this mission is going to last, it's really just not going to matter. So let me just point this directly at the sun and we'll see, I don't know, maybe. Okay, so we are all set up, looking at the sun, ready to decouple and hopefully not break anything on this satellite. Probably not even worry about, I'm probably not going to worry about the debris. I just want to make sure that I separate this so that the near-Earth avionics on the booster, the upper stage, does not drain the battery on the actual probe. So we do need to separate it to make sure that that functions as needed, and then this is set to turn itself into debris as soon as it's staged off. So last thing I want to do is just make sure that the science experiments are all turned on, just the orbital perturbation, because like I said, you just throw a bunch into space that have that, and that's how you kind of deal with it, and there we go. So that is another successful mission, 2 of the 3 Combox satellites. Oh right, I was supposed to talk about one last thing. Combox 1 is here, and we are here. So we are about roughly that 1/3 that I was looking for. Probably not exactly right, but like I said, I'm not getting out my protractor. But because we are not in the exact same orbit, and we don't have the exact same orbital period, over time, it's going to creep forward. Like if, for example, Combox 1 has an orbital period of 5 hours and 50 minutes, so it takes 3 minutes longer for it to get around in its orbit, that means this is going to creep closer to it by 3 minutes per orbit over the course of its lifetime. And that could, over time, lead to it being well out of position and like creeping up so that it's actually pretty darn close to it and not really functional as a 3-node network. But I'm fairly confident that the length of time that it would take for that amount of error to creep up into the system is longer than the lifetime on the solar panels. So that is my bet that is the case. I could very well be wrong, but like I said, this is a disposable network from the very beginning, so I'm not that stressed about it. So we're going to call that a absolutely successful mission, and 1 more to go. All right, well, it's a little surprising for this to be the case, but it is a little bit routine now that we are launching a mission to land on the moon. So yes, this is yet another surveyor craft that is heading up to land on the moon in the same profile with which I have done before. 1 second to launch. Ignition. And takeoff. Liftoff, whatever. We have cleared the tower and we are on our way up. Fabulous. So, yeah, same as always. The only thing about this that is going to make this kind of an interesting, different one is, well, we're going to need to figure out where we can land that isn't where we've landed before. So there's that, and there's also, in the middle of this mission, I'm going to have to take a little break to go deal with Intrepid 6 hitting the sphere of influence of Mars, because we sent that on a nice zippy fast intercept with Mars, and so it is, you know, it's there already, which is pretty damn cool. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, we're doing this for the cash. We're just trying to rake in some extra money to get our upgrades and do all that other stuff, because this is now a very cheap mission, because it cost me, I don't know, how many funds does this launcher cost these days? Like 6,000, 8,000 funds, and I get upwards almost 300,000 in return for doing it. Or more than 300,000, I think like 360,000 or something like that. But yeah, so that's a pretty good return on investment there, if you ask me, for something that's relatively easy. And it also returns a bunch of science, which is great, because we need a constant and massive flow of science to fund our space program, because we want to use that to get more upgrade points and you know, actually unlock more tech nodes, that sort of thing. So it ends up being that we are limited once again by cash in most respects. Like if I could have used that money to unlock certain new parts, like the Titan booster, the LR-87 and the 91, which I keep meaning to do, but I just have other priorities. My Tela rocket is doing like well enough that I just have not found myself missing out on the Titan architecture, and that's probably a mistake, because the times that I have like gone in and like fast forwarded and unlocked those parts just to play with them in craft files for a second, I've found that they're actually better in a lot of ways. For like at the same weight class, they're a little bit better, a little bit more performant than my Tela design, but not by so much that I've felt the need to throw everything out and like spend the hundreds of thousands of funds to unlock those engines. So that's the kind of the interesting thing that you end up doing. You end up like kind of stressing about how much money and research you've poured into one particular branch of the tree, one particular set of engines, over another, like, and that determines whether or not you use certain engines. Like I thought that would just be like the split between US and Soviet rocketry, but even particular engine types I just haven't done. But yeah, the engines that I have, I like pretty well, and there's a lot that we can still do with them that is more interesting. All right, so we are now in a good orbit around Earth. That was lovely and uneventful. Our Agena, the Agena D is getting up there in data collected for test light, so that's pretty good. But now, as we all know, the next step is to... Oh my god, did I do this again? I just realized that I still didn't go back in and fix the fact that this is near-Earth avionics, but we've proven that that's not that big of a deal now, so I'm less stressed about it. So it's actually probably fine. It probably reduces the cost of this mission by a fair amount. So yeah, not optimal, but actually it's probably more optimal now that I've proven that I can do it. All right, we are just about at the burn for our Translunar Injection, and we have a good ignition on our Agena D. Fabulous. So we are on our way. But as I said, this is going to be fairly routine. I'm just going to try to pick a place that I haven't been to before. So we are going to turn on the landing guidance. Everything's a little bit sped up because I'm doing the just time warping through this burn a little bit. Because we have plenty of fuel to make this happen, and then finish it off with RCS and make sure we are exactly where we want to be. Let's just show our landing coordinates, and I'm just interested in knowing the landing prediction. That's what I'm looking for here. Okay, just a couple more seconds till we wrap up this burn. And boop! Wow, that went by pretty quickly. That was not time warped at all. But yeah, we're going to want to, like, we've got plenty of solar coverage, so that's not a big deal, but we just need to pick a different location, probably over this way. There's some more mare over in that direction that I think would be just lovely. All right, and as we push this in, you can see where a little bit where we are coming down. And what I'm hoping to do as I push this over, Oceanus Procellarium. Procellarium? Alright, Imbrium, that's one we don't want to go to. Lowlands. Ooh, Mare Serenitatis? Would that be the Sea of Serenity? Alright, so let's just target the middle of that, and that looks great. Let's do that, and that should be a brand new biome for us to get a whole bunch of new science in. Alright, so as before, what I've done here is I've just taken a maneuver node and put it right about at the surface. So you can actually drag this down until you can see that the Apolloon is at 500 meters here. So, and then I'm going to burn, I know that we need about 2,500 meters per second or so to completely kill our velocity. And that gives us a good node vector that we can use right now. So this is a little bit dicey, given how far back over the horizon this is. So I'm very hopeful that we are going to be able to have control at that point, but we'll see what this trajectory looks like when we get there. All right, so there we go. That looks good. Okay, so I guess now all that's left, turn off the guidance, spin it up. We're pointing in the general direction of the sun, which is a happy coincidence, or maybe it's not a coincidence. I think it's kind of baked into this whole plan here. But we are pointed in the general direction of the sun, which means we will have plenty of power when we arrive. Okay, and throttles down and disconnect. Oh, that's not good. Let's not jump out of time warp until we are clear of the offending booster stage here. There we go. All that good. Okay, so there we go. Now we are all set, and I will shut down the avionics, and we will be ready to get this handled. And our upper stage here is just going to collide with the moon and become not a problem. So yeah, there we go. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, that node is in 4 days, 15 hours, and whatever, and we need to jump over to Intrepid 6 in just 2 days. So let's go ahead and put a timer on this. Come on back. A margin of like an hour, please. That way we are there in plenty of time before this node happens, which means we are there long before we actually collide with the moon. Because that would be a huge shame, is just smashing into the moon without even going back to the craft and working on it. So all right, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just go to the map. So I'm just going to go to the map and I'm going to time warp here so that, like, just to save me a load in between the two. So we're just going to hustle on up to get to the point where have 40 minutes. All right, so now it's time for us to jump over to Intrepid 6. All right, so here we are, Intrepid 6 in orbit around the sun, but approaching Mars. Look at that, that's really cool. So yeah, we are approaching Mars. Deimos and Phobos, we can just kind of see using distant object renderer there. Nice solar panel coverage on the sun. We still have 100% exposure because we've been using the persistent rotation. So that's been working perfectly, which I love. That's just fantastic. So we are hustling along towards Mars, and I have made a small adjustment to my trajectory since you guys were last here with me looking. So we are just moving into the sphere of influence of Mars, and once we get there, I will just take a quick look and show you what I have done. So I have lost this trajectory, but it's actually not that big of a deal because we'll fix it. But we have a good flyby of Mars here, and remember, the contract that we are trying to complete would like us to fly by within 20,000 kilometers. So our Para-Aryan right now is a little bit under 5 million meters, which is fine. So we're going to hit 20 million about here where we see the orbit of, at about the orbit of Deimos here. Deimos orbits at about that flyby range, which is a very handy visual metric. So we are going to be screaming through there, and you see that we have, or had, a encounter with Phobos, and that is something that I'm going to fix really quick, because we are still very close to it, and should very easily be able to repair that. So I'm just activating the vessel, basically. We are pointing pretty much prograde. Avionics are on, we should be all good. Are we all good? Or not? What's going on? Okay, so I have no idea what happened there, but I could not use my RCS thrusters, and it was terrifying me thinking that I'd like put on the wrong fuel or something. But no, we're fine. Everything's fine. We're all fine here. How are you? So anyways, goodness gracious, we are looking for a flyby of Phobos. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play with the RCS until we get back our encounter. And it is a very small, slow, and dicey encounter indeed. Not slow. Slow is the one thing it's very much not. So we are going to just cruise past at about like, 3.5 kilometers. What do you think of that? That sounds pretty good, right? So we're going to scream past, and when I say scream past, I really, really mean that, because we are going to be encountering Phobos at around 16:14:31, 16 hours, 14 minutes, 31 seconds, and leaving. See both at the same time? Oh, that's very handy. Yeah, so we're going to be in the sphere of influence of Phobos for about 7 seconds. So that's fairly ridiculous. Just 7 seconds. That's not enough time to get literally any science or anything of any value at all. However, I think that we can count that as a flyby, because, as I said, we are going to hit 20 million meters about here. And then we are going to be going from this point at 15 hours and 43 minutes until we arrive here about half an hour later, a little bit more than half an hour later, which should be enough time to complete plenty of experiments, send back the science, and then get the Mars flyby contract completed. And then that should unlock, in theory, the Phobos flyby contract, which we can take, and I think that we can just wink and nod and say that we've completed that when we go through here, because the only thing we'll have missed is actually completing a Kerbalism science experiment, and there's not one that completes in 7 seconds. So I guess you could argue that perhaps it's a little bit cheaty to plan a mission that doesn't complete one of these contracts. Like the fact that I don't have a flyby trajectory that would get me 3 minutes in the orbit of Phobos means that maybe I don't deserve to get this flyby. But I don't know how I would get a flyby without it being so screaming fast, because of the trajectory we took. We are screaming through at like nearly 10 kilometers a second relative to Mars. Like, that is bonkers. We are going to be going a lot even faster by the time we get down there. So yeah, because we just jumped like basically straight, like almost a straight line between the two. Well, not even close to a straight line between them, but you get what I mean. It was a very fast transfer. And that's why we're here as early as we are, and that's why we are going to get what we're going to get. So I think we're going to be okay with completing it. I'm going to see how this goes over the next minute or two as we approach and get this science. But we are here. We have done it. We have made it to the sphere of influence of Mars. We have encountered it. We are flying in, and we are, as we speak, getting and transmitting science back at a whopping 20 bytes per second. Which is pretty darn good when you consider how far away we are, because we are very, very far away. But we are doing pretty well, I think. Like, we have just 23 hours of power on this thing because of all the science experiments that we're doing. Once some of these science experiments finish, it's going to be a lot easier, especially this very power-hungry visible imaging, as we're taking pictures and sending it back to excited researchers back home at Earth. And we are rotating. That's fine. Just don't lose this encounter is all that really matters here. But I should probably kill this rotation. Like, it's a very slow roll. But let's go ahead and let's kill rotation. Sure we didn't mess this up too much. Okay, we are just fine. And now we have power. So that probably makes things a little bit easier. Yeah, so there we go. We have 2 days of power now, yeah, because the visible imaging is finished mostly. So yeah, we are approaching and still rotating. Why are you still rotating? Did you not do that? That'd be great. Just kill rotation and then just stay. That's really all I'm asking for. Okay, there we go. So there we go. We are approaching. I cannot believe how fast we are going relative to Mars. Like, it was a very fast intercept, but still, we are coming in. Our para-Aryan is in just 11 more hours, so we are on our way, and we are keeping an eye out for this. Scrolling on down. Mars flyby within 20 kilometers. That's the only thing that we need to do because we've already transmitted the high orbit science. So that is just fine. So now we are just waiting for our altitude to dip down another 300 million meters. Probably speed that up a little bit, but gosh, we are just hurtling through. Which is why this is a more expensive mission than Venus. I feel like I took a similar trajectory between Earth and Venus, and it was an encounter that did not have anywhere near this blistering level of relative velocity. Like, it took only 1,700 or so meters per second to get a not a circular orbit, but a large ellipse, but not like a crazy one around Venus. But here, like, just look at this. Look at this nonsense. Look at this nonsense. Boom. Okay, so 8,000 meters per second of delta V is what we would have needed to capture from this trajectory, which is, you know, why you don't capture on this trajectory that we took. This was very specifically an engineered flyby trajectory, and that's actually what I've done for all of these transfers in my alarm. I've chosen, like, okay, I want to choose the fast transfers so that I can get there, get the science, just do the flybys. We're not worried about orbiting. We're not worried about anything else. What we have the delta V for, what we have the craft files for, is these fast transfers that get us good flybys and get us a ton of science and also let us knock out contracts. So yeah, we're doing it deliberately. It's fine. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that it's just so dicey. Like, it's not like in regular Kerbal Space Program. In the stock game, you can basically capture and do your full mission set of missions on anything. Like, there's really no limit on what you need to do. Like, you can get better and do like a more efficient profile, but things are so small and so close to each other in the stock game that it's just not that big of a deal. But look at that beauty. We are coming in closer and closer. Approaching the red planet. Getting visible imaging of its dust storms and the polar ice caps. All the things that are interesting, and dispelling all the myths like the canyons and canals, the canal specifically on Mars that they posited existed. They honestly thought that the patterns that they were seeing from telescopes meant that there were canals all over Mars, and they thought maybe water was flowing through it, and maybe that was evidence of life and Martian civilizations. And that's one of the reasons why there was this huge amount of fiction back in the 60s and 70s about Martian civilizations and meeting aliens on Mars and aliens being from Mars and visiting Earth and all that, because we honestly thought that Mars might be able to harbor life, because we thought we saw like man-made canal structures there. So that's just an interesting thing, and that was something that was not really disproven until we sent a probe and we got a nice close look, and we went, oh no, that's just regular geologic features. And there we go. We have completed our Mars flyby contract, and look at that. We are so close, within 20 kilometers. We have completed this flyby. Data's coming in now, 360,000 funds. Fantastic. So let us just jump back real quick and see if we can't get this Phobos flyby contract. All right, so we can see that we have unlocked the Mars orbit contracts, which are pretty good, pretty well paying. Mars landing, Phobos and Deimos landing. Oh man, how cool would that be if we could send, like, I'm just imagining a probe that could land on more than one of the Martian moons in a single mission, but I feel like that's probably a little ambitious. Asteroid landing, neat. The grappling hook. Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know this was a thing. So anyways, this is a asteroid landing contract where you have to go use the claw to grab onto an asteroid and send back some science once you've grappled it, which is a really neat way to get some science. Like that would, so yeah, that would be like half of the Hayabusa mission that JAXA, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, put together, where they sent out a little tiny probe to rendezvous with an asteroid with the incredibly interesting name of 25143 Itokawa. But they rendezvoused with the asteroid, they landed on it, they collected a sample, and then they returned that sample to Earth. Holy crap, so that's so cool. This only asks us to do the rendezvous part, but still, that's really neat. So that's a cool thing. I didn't realize that was something. But then again, I don't think I've ever been this far in RP-1, so... flyby contracts. Here we go. Flyby contracts. Look at this. Phobos flyby. And the interesting thing is that you don't need a new vessel. They've deliberately made it so that there's no new vessel. And that's kind of the tip that I got from one of the developers was that you can go in and you can do what I'm doing now and like chain these contracts and unlock one and then do the next one right away with the same vessel if you've plotted out your trajectory very carefully. So it's something that is kind of deliberate to do, but like I said, we are going to have to cheat complete to get that done. But yeah, we are going to grab that because we are on our way to making this happen as well. And this is going to give us the money that we need to do all sorts of new cool building projects. So let's jump right back to it. All right, very cool. We are approaching now. We are still doing lots and lots of good science. We finished all the ones that we're probably going to finish, and perhaps the bad thing about this plan rather than doing the other plan is that we are going to miss out on near Mars science entirely. So I'm fairly certain we are not going to be in the near space environment for Mars at all, like on this trip. But that's honestly, it's not that big of a deal, I think, because we would be gaining a lot of science from that, like a bunch of extra science from being within that orbit for the 20 or 30 minutes that we would need to get some of these experiments done. But in doing so, we would have missed out on the contract of flying by Phobos, which I think right now, I just got done saying that money is our big limiter, and so I think that's something that we need to live by. So money is the factor that we are going to prioritize just for the moment. As we are advancing our space program, because there's a lot of things that we need to get done, and money allows us to get more science. Look at that. Mars coming in view. Still can't see Phobos. Okay, I am like 7 minutes away from the sphere of influence of Phobos, and I still can't see it, which is a little terrifying. Oh, look at that. There it is. There's that angry potato. All right. So there we go. We are coming up on the tiny moon of Phobos. Okay, future Justin here, and I just didn't want to lose this footage because tiny peek behind the curtain, I will often like wiki or look at various sources to get like some of the facts that I drop and images and things like that to talk about. And while I was doing that, I was not watching the terrifying Jaws-like approach of Phobos. So yeah, I just wanted to show you what was about to come immediately before I finally tabbed back in and noticed the horrifying reality of this flyby. So yeah, just enjoy that. Oh, we are coming in really fast. Look at how fast this thing is coming by. Oh my god, I was just reading something on the wiki really quick, but look at this. Oh my god, that's actually terrifying. But yeah, there was not actually any missions that went specifically to Phobos. Holy crap. Oh my gosh. Okay. That was amazing. Wow. Okay. Okay, so that was our flyby of Phobos. We can imagine that maybe I took a couple pictures on the way, but I think we are most decidedly out of the out of the sphere of influence of Phobos now. Oh my god. I don't know why that cracked me up so much, but that was so silly. But we have flying by Phobos within 45 kilometers, but there's no way we're getting any kind of science out of that. So, like I said, I think we're going to cheat complete that. But from my reading, we haven't actually had any successful missions specifically to Phobos. A lot of the missions that went into the Martian system, such as the Mariner 7 and 9 missions and Viking 1 sent by NASA, and then the Soviet Union actually had a couple Phobos-specific missions that did go into that area. So the Americans never actually sent a mission directly to Phobos or Deimos, but the Soviets did. In 1989, that is, the Soviet Union sent up the Phobos 2 mission, which, according to Wikipedia, the last space probe designed by the Soviet Union. Yeah, because not long after that, it became the Russian Federation. But it was designed to explore Phobos and Deimos in a lot more detail than this mission did. So that's actually something that I probably am going to study a lot more, because I'm very interested in setting up a mission to study specifically the 2 moons of Mars, like going from one to the other, like just bouncing around in this system and exploring both. Like that would be a really cool mission profile, I think. But yeah, that's what the Soviet Union did. They sent it out there to check out the surface of those 2 tiny little moons. They actually had little landers that they dropped off, or were intended to drop off. They had a lot of big plans, but it looks like they actually the mission failed not long after first encountering Phobos. They had some preliminary encounters. They did some science experiments, and then they lost contact with the probe and were no longer able to communicate with it or send any commands or receive anything back from it. So that's a shame. But yeah, it's really hard to send stuff out and get encounters with these tiny little rocks orbiting other planets, which we have done. We have made it to Mars and managed to encounter one of its moons, which is fantastic. It went by too fast, and I was laughing too hard to actually get a screenshot of it. So there's going to be no majestic screenshot of Phobos and Mars in the same shot like I was hoping I would get. But that's, I guess that's my fault for being completely tickled. But anyways, yeah, so there have not been many missions directly to Phobos or Deimos. There, like most of the craft that have come to the Martian system have taken pictures of it from afar, but not many things have been sent to study it directly. So maybe I will rectify that sometime in the future, but we'll see. I'm trying to be a little more aggressive about getting out to the other planets, because I think this is freaking delightful. Because look at this. Look at how gorgeous this is. Like, I absolutely adore going out to other planets just to admire the scenery and just the unearthly beauty, literally, of these other planets. And they've done such a great job of making these look fantastic and just about photorealistic at multiple distances. Like, from far away, it looks like a little red dot. When you get a little closer, you can actually see like the orange hue that you would see from a close-up telescope. Now that I'm this close, you can see wispy clouds overhead that are the indicative telltale that there is an atmosphere on this planet. So yeah, it's fantastic, and I love to visit all these planets so we can actually see them and see them up close. And I think that is just a tremendous amount of fun. And I hope that you won't mind too much that I was just laughing through the entire Phobos encounter. We'll be back again someday. So yeah, I actually think this is about mission complete for this vessel. Let's see, how far are we? We are just a minute and a half away from our para-Aryan, and then we are just going to fly past and head on to the dark side of the planet, which is going to be a little bit less exciting to look at, I have to imagine. So yeah, we are still space high, even now that we are just passing through the para-Aryan. So just like I thought, we have lost out on the space low in exchange for a flyby of Phobos, which I think was definitely worth it. So we are going to move into cheats, and we are going to go down to the contracts, not cheats. Active. Phobos flyby. And once again, I am going to complete that because I think that's what we would have to do to make this work because of Kerbalism. Because for the same reason that we had to cheat complete the contract for the first scientific orbit, because we didn't have 90 days inside orbit to complete that science. It would take way too long and way too many launches, and it's not in the spirit of what they intended. So it would be better if we were able to actually capture around it and get science, but to spend enough time to complete any experiment, literally any experiment around another planet with Kerbalism, or one of those little moons with Kerbalism, we would have to orbit. So if the only way we're going to be able to fly by Phobos and Deimos and complete a contract is by doing the next step up, next difficulty up contract, I think it's worth just saying, okay, that's fine. We're gonna cheat complete and call that good. So hopefully I've justified myself enough, because it's just going to happen. Boop. There we go. So we have completed that. Close that down, and congratulations on the flyby. The data's coming in now, and we have gotten like almost 700,000, 600,000 funds from completing that extra Phobos flyby on top of our Martian flyby. And you'll notice that I used just a teensy bit of fuel doing that. Like, it took me, basically, the way that I figured this out. So I got a tip on the Discord when I was talking about this last time, in the last episode. I was talking about the possibility of doing these different things, and I got the tip that, you know, you could do it like this. You could do one contract and then the next contract. And then, so at the beginning of my orbit, I just shifted by like, I don't know, 10, 15 meters per second of delta V. I didn't actually show it on screen because I wanted to make sure that I had that out of the way. But yeah, it only cost me about 10 or 15 meters a second of delta V to get my orbit through the Martian system. To move my flyby trajectory, it was like over here, and then I was just able to move it over here, and like that was super not a big deal. So this is the kind of thing that you can absolutely do without a ton of trouble. But now that that's done, we have a funky trajectory that I think is not going to be useful at all. So just like with our first Venus flyby, I don't think we're going to encounter anything that is worthwhile. So not something worth worrying about or tracking anymore. And you can see now why this was such a high energy trajectory, because we have pushed our orbit almost all the way out to Vesta. Which is Vesta and Ceres are about half-ish way to Jupiter-ish, something like that. So yeah, that's a very energetic transfer that I did just to go from here to here, and I pushed my orbit way out there just so that I could hit it fast, because that was what I was looking for, and that was very successful, and I am thrilled about that. So that all said, I think it's time now to turn off the battery and supply indicators on this. And, you know, I might even... No, we're going to leave this heliocentric, and then I'll leave it in my tracked list for now, because it has a little bit of fuel and might be useful for something. I don't know. Hard to say what it could be useful for, but we are going to point ourselves up towards the sun. And then we are going to do the persistent rotation thing so that this is always pointing at the sun, so that I don't have to stress about that. The rotation to the sun. Fantastic. Fantastic. So yeah, this should always be usable and useful now, and has 600 meters per second. So until the solar panels die, this could be something that I could jump into and, I don't know, play with the trajectory or something. But that is done, and we will be transmitting back science. We've already sent home 55 credits, and we have just a little bit more to do between now and when we exit the Martian system. So yeah, fantastic mission. That was a really fun one. I really love Mars. Mars is really cool. I love all the ideas of terraforming it and all that sort of thing. So I'll talk more about that when we orbit it again, but I'm really happy to have managed this flyby of Mars and an extra flyby of Phobos. All right, so with that complete, we have almost 1 million funds. So yeah, I feel like that was worth our time. We have another day until our surveyor craft is ready to roll. So let's go ahead and just warp ahead to that. Well, actually, we don't have to warp ahead. I can just jump directly into Surveyor 4, and then we will just wrap that mission up. Well, shoot. Okay, so we're back here with Surveyor 4, and it looks like this mission has failed because it's somehow managed to rotate around and point in a completely different direction that it was pointing at before. Yeah, so I'm not sure what to do about that, or if there's anything I can do about it. But this is probably just going to crash into the moon when we finally do arrive there. So let's go ahead and just time warp forward. Look at that funky orbit. Kind of fun. But yeah, we're just off. I don't know why it's off like that. Like, we're not still rotating, it doesn't look like. Like, we seem to be fixed on a particular point on the nav ball. Like, it doesn't look like I'm traveling around the nav ball, right? Like, it seems to just be fixed in one point, but it's just at the wrong point, which is really annoying. And it's not like I can revert this or anything because, you know, I did that whole freaking Mars mission in between. Well, that's fine. We're going to call that a guidance failure, I guess, and this is just going to be a mission failure. Like, I don't feel particularly comfortable cheat completing this one when there's so many more variables left over. I just wish there was something I could do to reorient this craft, like force-oriented, like force the get this pointed in the right direction just for a second, just so that I would have a chance to try to execute this mission rather than just say, well, it's boned. All right, so here we go down, and we are pointing in completely the wrong direction at this point. So really not sure what I did wrong there. It's possible that I put the maneuver node in the wrong place, but I'm still not pointing at it. Like, that was the point of what I had done there. I think if you leave the vessel, there's a chance that something is going to glitch you in the wrong direction, and then you will smash into the moon. So I was just thinking that I could, like, kick this off and then, like, rotate around and then try to burn up and try to miss the moon and send this off into some other orbit that might be useful, but I'm not really sure that that matters all that much. There's not much that I can do with this thing that I think would be of a lot of value. So I think we're just going to accept this loss. Vapor in the feed lines. Oh no, that actually used the ignition too. All right. Oh, right, I was supposed to, okay. All right, so there's clearly some things that I need to fix on this this craft for next time. Because I forgot that I needed to, like, stage up the RCS a little bit early and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's some upgrades that I can do on this mission to make it a little bit less failure prone, one might hope. All right, buddy, you still got it. Orbit retrograde, let's go. Oh no! Smash. Kaboom! And we have impacted the surface. There we go. So that's that. That's a shame, but that's fine. We'll definitely survive this one and be able to send up a Surveyor 5 to take its place. All right, so that complete. Well, as complete as it's going to get, I suppose. We have 6 days until early docking procedure. So let's just, well, before we time warp, let's start. We want to upgrade the astronaut complex to level 2, which gets us the ability to do EVAs. So that is something that is going to take just 100 days. Wow, that's pretty quick. Yeah, maybe I didn't need to do that quite as fast as I did, but that'll allow us to do EVAs as soon as we have a Gemini spacecraft, which is fantastic because that's, you know, contract in and of itself. So that will just be done, and then we can be sure that we have the money to do all the other things that we need to do. So let's go ahead and see what early docking procedures looks like. So this gets us all sorts of interesting things. So there's the Gemini piece, which I'm going to hold off on because I've heard there's an upgrade coming to the capsule parts, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm not sure I want to spend that money quite yet, but docking ports themselves are very, very expensive. So all of these probably have a shared cost for docking ports, which is why these are as expensive as they are, because that is a brand new type of technology that we are pioneering in this node. There's also Apollo bits, that's fine. Big RCS quad, that's fine. Reaction wheel, holy crap. So actual honest to goodness reaction wheels, that's pretty exciting. They're not nearly as overpowered and amazing as they are in stock, but being able to have that at all in this land of using propellant for absolutely everything is really, really cool, and that could have saved us about a half a dozen times over already. More importantly, we have RCS technology upgrade to level 2, which is an upgrade for RCS thrusters and engines. So that is going to make every single one of our RCS thrusters and every single one of our generic thrusters better by a lot. And it's also going to get us this new bipropellant. I think I might have said monopropellant or something, but hypergolic bipropellant fuels, which are way better than even hydrazine, by a fairly dramatic margin. So that should, between the two, that should really improve our ability to do things like small probe thrusters, RCS. Probably won't use RCS too much with these, but there's some really good small thrusters that we'll be able to use, and that alongside the TD339 vernier engine that we're going to get on the early landing node is going to be really helpful for landing on things. So yeah, this is between these two, that is going to make our small probes way more useful and usable. So that is going to be a pretty big upgrade there. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. And then we have early landing coming up next. For now, I think I'm just going to unlock the RCS technology node. These are things that are unlocked in the Real Fuels UI. And I'm going to grab the reaction wheel, and we're going to hold off on all of this stuff until I actually need it. But yeah, there we go. The big exciting thing for me there was the new fuels, which is going to revolutionize our lander designs. All right, so one of the unlocks that I want to finally get are the LR87 and the LR91. I've procrastinated on them for a very long time, but I feel like they are a pretty useful thing compared to some of the engines that I have, and they'll fill different niches, and I might just need to make a Titan II GLV for my Gemini capsule, just for old time's sake. So let's go ahead and unlock the LR87. Boop. And then refresh that to see what actual unlocks we get there. So yeah, that gives us shared technology with the single stick is the same as the double, so that gets us that one for free, and this is only going to cost us another 20,000 on top. There we go. The LR91 is a very capable upper stage, and the LR87 is a fantastic booster in kind of the same class as the LR89 and the H1 that I've been using so far. So that will allow me to kind of broaden my set of launchers that I'm using. And we don't have too much more that's that expensive coming up. So yeah, for now that's going to let me design a couple more things, but yeah, I think that will probably do for unlocks for now, which means I can spend some more funds on, just save a little bit of money, spend more money on R&D. Yes, go faster R&D, and there we go, and a little bit of VAB as well. But yeah, pretty soon I think we want to invest in our VAB upgrade, so we're going to want to have a lot of money at once for that. For when we finally make that happen. But until then, I think that is going to be just fine, and that gives us plenty of new things to play with. But clearly, even after I just got done saying that I didn't need to upgrade my surveyor mission because I had new stuff coming, well, the new stuff is here. Let's go ahead and use it. I might wait until early landing because we have 660 days to finish that contract. Like, I'd love to get it done and out of the way, but if we can do it with like the really good actual surveyor, like real actual surveyor engines, that might be a little bit better and be a little bit easier to do. So maybe we'll do that. I need to do a redesign of it anyways, just to not have so many problems with it. Yeah, so we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll do it after we get this the other technology, I think is probably the right move, because we've got plenty of other things to do. But that, I think, is going to do it for us today. We got a lot done, a lot of cool stuff. I didn't manage to pull off my awesome moon landing twice in a row, which is kind of a shame, but also mostly my own fault. I could have just waited a week to launch the darn mission, but in any case, if you enjoyed this episode, please let me know, like and subscribe, leave me a comment. I do love talking with you all, and I will see you next time.